Tell him. What are we doing for today's video, Mr. Farter?
Fade.
A skin fade. And a beard.
Yeah.
And it's going to be blurry.
Yeah.
Like this video. So stay to the end. Find out how we do. Beautiful skin fades. Keeping them blurry. Nice beard trim. The whole razor works. But the only thing we're not using is a super shaver. Because we don't need them. We don't. Unless they want to send me one. You can send me one. And I'll use them and show you how to use them. Because I'm really good at them. But I ain't going to pay for them because I don't really need it. So let's go. Skin fade. So that was just me and my son goofing around. But here's my client. As you can see, he's bringing me a whole head of hair. He's got a hot mess for me, and I've got a lot of work ahead, so let's get right to it. Starting out, I'm going to slightly wet the hair and find the natural part. This will just allow me to help clear the sides, and to do so, I will bring this down to a number 2. I have my masters with my guard closed, and I'm just going to clear the sides here to help set the canvas for the fade. After I've removed the bulk, I'll go in with my 0. For that, I'm using my masters with my lever closed, and I'll set my first bald line at the midway point, right around the temple line. Once I've set my first guideline, I'll go in and start to soften the middle section, trying to keep the new transition line as clean as possible, using my masters with my lever open, and I'm bringing it up about 1 inch. After I've softened the middle section, I'll use my trimmers to go over that 0 line that we had already set. This just gives my clippers an opportunity to cool down while I do so, and allows for me to really bald out the fade. Back to my masters, starting halfway, and I'm just going up about a 1/2 inch to soften the bottom line. You will notice in this section that I'm changing my lengths pretty often. That's just to spread the fade, but I will break down the level changes and explain in more detail as I do so. Now with my masters closed, and I'm just softening that bottom line a little bit more, going up maybe 1/4 of an inch. This isn't going to entirely erase the bottom line, but it will help with the transition of the fade.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Load it.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You'll see here that I'm starting to open the lever. I'm using a close to open loop where I start to blend the section together. This will help tighten and spread the fade. So for example, the more I open the lever, the higher I'll work in the section. The more the lever is closed, the lower in the section I'll work. But ultimately the goal here is to make sure there's no dark spots, there's no lines, and that everything is starting to blend together nicely. We will ultimately have to go back and do detail work, but the main objective here is just spreading the fade and giving myself a nice canvas to work with. Now that I've spread that middle section, I'll use my zero guard open, which is about a 1.5, and I'm just starting to soften the next transition line. There are ways to do this freehand without any guards, but for this video I'm showing you the safe way to make sure you don't accidentally blend the fade too high. I will, however, show you some freehand techniques you could try, but you'll have to stay to the end to find out how we do those freehand techniques. After I've softened the next transition line, I'll start to make my way back down. Here I have my zero guard halfway, and I'm working on tightening and spreading this middle section. Now with my zero guard closed, I'm working just up to where the middle line was, and I'm using a flicking motion to erase that line and starting to put this entire section together. Here's a trick I like to use to remove the middle lines. I have my zero guard open, working against the grain, making sure only to remove the line. There is a trick to it, and I'll show you a close-up in more detail later on in this video. Going on to some detail work here, I have my lever open. Where that middle line was, I'm just scooping that middle line away. My blade is not flat against the head here. As you can see, I'll close it to halfway and work my way down. This just helps to tighten the fade. Again, I can't stress enough that my blade is not flat against the head. I'm not using a flicking motion, it's more of a scooping action. And it just pushes the fade back, it tightens it up, it'll erase any lines if they are there. And once you understand how to manipulate your blade angle, it will definitely help bring your fades to another level. Here I'm doing some detail work with my magic clips. The reason I like using this clipper for my detail work is because the blade with the lever all the way opened is about 3/4 of the length of the blade of my masters. So I can zero these out a lot better, and my masters are better for a workhorse because they have a larger motor, but these clippers allow me to get into tighter spaces, so I prefer using them to do my detail work. You may use something totally different for your detail work, and that's fine too. You can still give great haircuts with other clippers. With these clippers, you're going to want to use them more for fading or finessing a fade. You don't want to use that scooping motion that I talked about, just because the blade angle and the teeth are different, so it will cut different if you try to use it that way. However, for a flicking or a finessing clipper, these will work just fine. Going back to my masters, the final step here is using that scooping motion to erase the middle line once and for all. When you hold the blade out at an angle, it's going to be closer to a 1.5 in length rather than an actual 1. Here I'm doing some more of that scooping motion. I'm just doing it horizontally. The blade is not flat against the head, it's at an angle. I'm using the middle of the blade to help erase that middle transition line. If you notice the way I'm holding my clippers, it's in reverse, almost as if I was holding a pen. Obviously, if you've never done this before, it will take time to learn, but once you get it down, it can definitely help transform your fades. So now working with my trimmers, here I'm using a scooping motion, and I'm stretching the skin and working to erase that bottom line. It's important to know that the more detail work you learn, the better it will be for your fades and your ability to retain customers. They will absolutely notice the effort you put in and translate that to you being serious about what you do. Even if you're not the greatest right now, a lot of the time, they'll stick with you because they know you're going to grow, they know you're going to get better, and they want to be a part of that journey. So I highly recommend, if you're a new barber, take your time. Don't worry so much about the money at first, but worry about getting better at cutting hair. I always think of that as a long-term investment in myself, and once you have the skill set, you'll bring that with you wherever you go. So after I finish the fade and remove that bottom line, sometimes I will go back and do more detail work, especially if I see something I know I can make better. Sometimes a haircut might take more detail work than another time. In this case, this is a longtime friend and a longtime customer, and I never struggled more than the day I decided to record his haircut. So it does happen, even if you've been doing it for a long time. Just make sure you get your detail work down and there's no haircut you can't make better or fix if it needs to be fixed. For the top of the head, we're going with a crew style top. So here I'm knocking the middle of the crown to the back of the crown down to a 3, and this will actually serve as my guide to cutting the rest of the hair. On a crew style top, the back of the crown gets progressively longer towards the front, so knocking down the middle of the crown with my clippers will help save me time and gets the middle of the crown down past finger length. Here I'm using a 2-guard to combine the sides and the top. On the top is a 3, the sides ends at a 2. So just running my 2-guard right along that line will help blend these two parts together so it's a nice smooth transition. On a crew style top, the front is going to be right around finger length. So here I'm using finger over shear to trim from the bangs to the middle of the crown. Here I'm doing a reverse shear over comb. I'm basically blending the front of the hair into the back of the hair. It's also useful for blending the sides into the top. I prefer using my shears as much as possible for the top of someone's head. A part of that is because it makes blending the hair a lot more natural looking, and my shears can do things that my clippers can't. So for the top of the hair, I'm using a shear over comb and a finger over shear combination to achieve that crew style look. I think it's important to make sure that you are seeing the hair from all angles, especially when you're doing your shear work. So I do work my way around the head, and I'm always double checking hair length to make sure that everything blends and is even. Here I'm cutting multiple sections as I move my comb and shears through the hair. I'm not focused on taking length here, but I am gliding my shears through the sections and removing bulk. This will help even the hair while simultaneously texturizing it. After I finish with the top, I'll go on to clean up the beard and do the razor part of the fade. But I've decided I'm going to put that in a part 2 video just because there was so much information in this video. I know you're probably busy like me and might not have a ton of time, so you have to stay tuned, like and subscribe if you want to see part 2 of this tutorial where I razor fade and freehand his beard. Here's the transformation. Huge transformation, as you can see, going from as long as possible to basically as short as possible. So stay tuned. I appreciate the support, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.